Hello, what's up? Welcome back. Today I am doing a song by Sarah McLachlan, Fallen. And if you know Sarah McLachlan, if you can't remember the name, I'm pretty sure you've heard this song.
In the arms of the angel.
And if you've seen any pet commercial, you know exactly what I'm talking about, or that rescue animal commercial. Anyway, this is what I consider personally one of her one of her better songs, and also I think it's somewhat underrated. No one really ever talks about it because everyone's all caught up in Arms of an Angel. Anyway, let's talk about this. This should be interesting. Let's get into it.
Heaven bent to take my hand and lead me through the fire. Be the long-awaited answer to a long and painful fight. Truth be told, I've tried my best, but somewhere along the way, I got caught up in all there was to offer. And the cost was so much more than I could bear.
Okay, so let's get into these first two lines in the first verse. When she says, Heaven been to take my hand and lead me through the fire, be the long-awaited answer to a long and painful fight. Let's break down this part right here. So basically, one could say, maybe she doesn't literally mean heaven, but she may mean metaphorically heaven, but maybe, and you can see heaven, because heaven is often seen as salvation from pain and from suffering, that final salvation, so to speak. And one could say that she's looking for heaven to offer her the salvation and lead her through her trials and the tribulations and be the ultimate peace to all the struggle that she's had to endure. And then she says, truth be told, I've tried my best, but somewhere along the way I got caught up in all there was to offer, and the cost was so much more than I could bear. Basically, she's saying, like here, it plays into this line when basically saying, I did the best that I could to be the best person that I could, and I tried to look to my faith to show me that way, but ultimately I got lost or I fell off the path somewhere in there, and I got caught up in all the temptation, all of the things that life had to offer, all the things that I knew were bad for me, and I got seduced and taken in by it. And ultimately, it cost me far more than I intended for it to, maybe more than I even had bargained for, and now I don't know how to deal with that.
Though I've tried, fallen, I had sunk so low. I messed up better, I should know. So don't come round here and tell me I told you so.
So, when we get into the chorus here, when she says, so I've tried, I've fallen, I have sunk so low, I've messed up, better I should know, so don't come around here and tell me I told you so. We gotta stop all this early, but eventually we'll catch the flow of the song. Anyway, so basically the whole chorus is saying, again, it's reiterating the whole point of the first two verses, which is, I tried, I tried my best to walk a more divine or a better path, but I ultimately failed, and not only did I fall, but I sunk very low. I messed up. It's very straightforward. I messed up, and I knew better. I did it anyway, even though I knew better. So don't come around telling me that I told you so, because I already know what I've done. I already know where I failed, and at this point, I don't really need you to tell me. Anyway.
We all begin with good intent. When love was raw and young, we believed that we could change ourselves. The past can be undone, but we carry on our back the burden time always reveals. And the lonely
So when we get into the second verse here, when she said, and then she outlines the, I say the conflict within herself, or not so much the conflict, but she laments her regrets, so to speak, and her feelings. Because she says, "We all begin with good intent. Love was raw and young. We believe that we could change ourselves. The past could be undone." And I think this is very important because it outlines where a lot of us start. Like a lot of us, when we start off, especially when we're younger, we're more naive. We a lot of times we do have the best of intentions with our actions. We're never intending, for the most part, to do harm to somebody, to hurt others, or even hurt ourselves, or cause bad situations. When especially when she says like love was raw and young, like when like our emotions are very on the tips of our fingers. You wear your heart on your sleeve. It's very overwhelming, your feelings and your emotions, and you're just doing what you think is best and you're trying your best, but often sometimes you can give in to more emotional reactions and emotional lines of thought. And then she says, we believe that we could change ourselves, the past could be undone. And we like to think that we can grow and change over time and that we can undo our past mistakes. But we ultimately carry the burden of that with us everywhere we go. And while we think we can change it, we can grow past it, sometimes it'll stick with you and you won't be able to move past it entirely. And that also ties into when it says, that ties into, but we carry on our backs the burden time always reveals. Like no matter how long you go, sometimes even if you go years, sometimes that pain will stick with you. Something that I always used to say to people is that physical scars can heal, emotional scars can last a lifetime. And I think this song really exemplifies that. That even if you move forward, even if you try to change yourself, you can some things you do, you'll forever wear the mark of that. And then when she says, in the lonely light of morning, in the wounds that would not heal, it's a bitter taste of losing everything that I've held so dear. And so basically, at this point, in the lonely light of morning, like when you wake up, basically you're by yourself. And in those early morning lights, those early morning moments are often kind of reflective moments when you're trying to collect yourself before you start your day. And in the wound that would not heal, and that's especially when I say like emotional wounds don't always heal. And when you're laying there in the lonely morning and you're reminiscing and you're kind of reflecting over your misdeeds, because even though you have suffered and maybe you've learned to live with it better, the wound itself has not entirely closed, and it possibly never will, because you're left with the fact that you lost everything that you held dear by your own actions, and there's no one else to blame but yourself. And I think this song is also in a sense, take is about taking accountability for how you've messed up and understanding that you may not be able to entirely fix it.
Falling, I have sunk so low. I messed up better. I should know. So don't come round here and tell me I told you Heaven bent to take my hand, but nowhere left to turn. I'm lost to those I thought were friends, to everyone I know. Oh, they turn their heads embarrassed, pretend that they don't see that it's one misstep, one slip before you know it. And there doesn't seem a way to be redeemed.
Okay, let's get into this final little bridge verse before we wrap up the song. And I encourage you, as I always do, go listen to this song outside of my commentary to kind of gain your own understanding of it, which you should. And so let's get into this. When she goes back into the heaven been to take my hand, nowhere left to turn. I've lost to those I thought were friends, to everyone I know. Or they turn their heads embarrassed, pretend that they don't see, but it's one misstep, one step before you know it, and there doesn't. And I think it's very interesting where she says, like, basically she's run out of places to go. She's run out of people to turn to. She has no more friends. She has no more family, and they've all turned away from her, ashamed to even look at her for what she's done, and they want to basically pretend like she doesn't exist, pretend that there is that she's nobody essentially. But the thing is, I think, which is interesting in this line, this is kind of how I take it. But the thing is, they want to pretend like they don't see them. They want to pretend. I think also that they would never do such a thing. That they could never end up in such a place. A lot of us do. We look at someone who has messed up severely and possibly has alienated everybody, and we want to sometimes pretend or think that that would never be us. That we would never do such things. That we would never make such choices. But as she outlines here, but it's one misstep, one slip before you know it. Sometimes all it takes is one mistake, one slip up, one misstep to turn your entire life around, and you could end up where she is in this song. You know, where everyone else has shunned you and turned away from you, and ultimately, when she says it doesn't seem to be a way to be redeemed, you know, that ultimately maybe there is no going back. Maybe you can't fix it, despite your efforts, despite how much you may have changed. No one will forgive you, and maybe you can't get it, and maybe you don't deserve it on the same level you may feel.
Though I've tried falling, I hit some so low. I messed up better. I should know. So don't come round here and tell me I told you so. Lord, I messed up better. I should know. But don't come round here and tell me I told you so.
Okay, that was Sarah McLachlan Fallen, which I personally think is an amazing song. But let me know what you think. Do you agree, disagree, anything I missed? What's your interpretation? I'd like to hear about it. Even if I can't get to comment, I still will read it. Anyway, until next time, I will talk to you later. Also, if there's another Sarah McLachlan song you would like me to talk about, let me know and I'll try to get around to it. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. Peace.